Ariane Kaploun. I've joined AXA Climate 4 years ago now. I'm leading a team called Nature-Based Solution. And what we are doing is we work with nature proponents, being project developer, being investors, to help them on modeling climate risk and also impacts. Among nature, we have one big ecosystem that we love, which is forestry, of course. And in this context, we joined 2 European consortium. The first one is financed by a Horizon grant. It's called PIISA. And the second one is financed by EUSPA, which is a space agency for Europe, and it's called SWIFTT. And with both PIISA and SWIFTT, we wanted to gather a bit key stakeholders of the forestry sector with several objectives. The first one is to discuss together the topic of climate risk and adaptation for the forest sector, and also to highlight some of the projects that are working on this at EU level. And why those projects are quite important and interesting, it's because all of the materials that is produced is often public and result at the end in amazing tools, reports that can benefit to all of us. About the agenda of these 2 hours we're going to spend together, 2 hours minimum, and hopefully more for the one in the room. So we start with a roundtable session. So Sylvestre and myself are here in Paris in the room, and we have 3 remote speakers. We'll have a short break. So we start slightly late. So we might have a break of 5–10 minutes before we gather again in 2 different breakout room sessions, 2 of 30 minutes each. And you will be able to choose which session to attend. So you will have the choice between 3 projects for the first session and 2 projects for the second session. And we'll briefly introduce you the different projects so you will know where you jump in. So we plan on finishing around 5:50-ish, something like this, a little bit before 6, little break, and we'll be very happy if you want to stay with us for a little networking after work here in our premises at AXA Climate. Important remark for our colleagues online. If you have any questions or some remarks you would like to share, please write it in the chat. The AXA Climate team is numerous today, so we are lucky to have Rhea over there, and on the back, Beat, Giovanni somewhere. You're here. Luis and Anna, so the questions are monitored. So please do ask questions, and we'll try to answer it live, or if not live, we'll just provide an answer just after. Time to start with a roundtable. So I'm going to start by introducing our panelists. Thank you. Topic of the roundtable, of course. So how do policy and regulations help promote adaptation strategies for forest sector? So as you will see, a lot of our panelists have experience, let's say, with both the private and the public sector. So this will be the angle for this first discussion of today. So I'm going to start with Alessandra, woman first. So Alessandra Stefani, if you're still here and you can hear us, if you can just say hi to make sure that people identify you. Oh, you can't see her actually.
Hi.
Perfect, yes, the sound is great. So you have a background as a forest scientist. You worked for many years for the Italian state, focusing on the forest sector. And you are now the president of Italian forest sword cluster called Italia Foresta Legno. So thank you so much for being with us, Alessandra.
It's good. It's good. Thank you.
And Alessandra is representing Italy, obviously. If we go on the other side of the Mediterranean, we have also Mario. Hello, Mario. We've just seen you over there. So Mario is from Portugal, working for the Agency of Integrated Forest Management, also called AGIF. And AGIF is a very important organization created in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, after the large wildfires that Portugal had in 2017. And Mario is responsible of developing policies, planning, and budgeting for the integrated fire management of Portugal. Correct, Mario?
Yes, correct. Thank you.
Thank you. So continuing to the west side of the world, we also have a remote panelist from California. So Dave, if you can hear us still, we are very happy to have you also in this panel. You can just say something so your face will appear on the screen.
Thank you, delighted to be with you.
Perfect, thank you, Dave. So Dave comes with a little background, which is a little bit different, I would say. As your core expertise is climate risks, can't see you anymore, is climate risk and climate policy. So Dave worked a lot with the Californian state. Currently is a director at the Climate Risk Institute at the University of Berkeley. And very recently, Dave and his team implemented the first of its kind insurance policy for wildfire, integrating already forest management practices. We're going to discuss that just a bit later. Thanks for being with us today, Dave. And finally, of course, we have Sylvestre with us today. So Sylvestre is here in the room with me. I hope you can see him for people online. I know where the camera is, here probably. Sorry, what? Yeah. Sylvestre, you are the CEO of Forestry France. And in a few minutes, you will be able to explain what Forestry France is doing. Over your career, you've worked a lot on what does it mean to sustainably manage a forest. You are also the former president of the Forest Association of Experts. Can I say that in English? Yeah, Forest Association of Experts. And I know already that for you, international collaboration is very important. And that's a topic that we're going to also discuss today. Yep. Maybe a warm-up, just to make sure everyone is still not sleeping. So we would be interesting to hear you online. I think a little pop-up will appear on Zoom, on the Zoom platform. And in the room, we can just have an open vote on what are, according to you, the key climate threats in Europe for forests, obviously. So what would you say? Key climate threats for forests in Europe. Oh, you can actually see the proposition on Zoom. So this is a bit cheating, but anyway. So on Zoom, they could choose between landslide, wildfire, storm, drought, and bug beetle. But you can provide more ideas. Okay, there is no grade at the end. Don't worry. You can just one of the key one at least. What would you say? Bug beetle, I've been hearing. Wildfire. Drought. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so let me just move on because I don't want us to be too late. So actually, the key risk is a storm, a wind throw. I'm saying this based on the database for forest disturbances from the EU. So they compiled all and recorded all events since 70 years, 70. And today in Europe, you have around 50% of the damages that are coming directly for storms, around 25 from fire. So fire indeed is a great problem. And a little bit less than 20, I think it's 17, coming from bug beetle specifically. And the rest is a mix. So let me now turn to Alessandra. And directly jumping to the Italian case. So is it something that surprises you? And how is it in Italy for the forests that you've been working with over the years? What have you observed regarding climate threats?
Good evening to everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. I would like to describe you the European forest strategy for the entire Europe and what is kindly different in Italy. As you probably know, the carbon sink service decreased by 27% between 2020 and 22. And factors considered include increased timber harvesting, but not in Italy, more frequent heat waves and droughts, and this is for Italy too, and intensified wildfires, windstorms, and insects and fungal infestations. This exacerbated the climate crisis, and this has implication for forest disturbances, which are therefore a problem as well as solution for adapting and mitigating the climate crisis. The European Forest Strategy proposes, in addition to a general reduction of greenhouse gas emission, rethinking logging regimes and promoting sustainable forest management to promote forest resilience. It believes that timely data monitoring can lead to more effective solutions, including through stronger integration of climate and environmental policies. It also suggests creating mixed forests richer in species to better tolerate disturbance. The Italian situation is similar to the European one, but has some unique characteristics. It benefits from much stronger and older forest protection legislation than other countries, meaning that forest owners, for reasons of public interest, cannot freely dispose of their forests. Most private owners who own approximately 60% of the forests are unknown. There is no forest owners association, and each of them owns much less than 1 hectare of forest. Abandonment characterizes the management of Italian forests, which has no management, which have been subjected to forest fires and fungal as insect disease for millennia. More recently, however, has been wind damage, which until 2018 had affected only local situation and small areas. The primary objective, therefore, is landowner associations to initiate a sustainable forest management. National Wood Cluster, I am president of the National Wood Cluster, is the practical realization of one of the instrumental actions of the National Forest Strategy. Born in 2023, it is a private association with public purposes. The association aims to promote the development of the national forestry system through dialogue and synergy with the various national supply chains and local clusters in the sector. It contributes actively to research and develops programs that enable the dissemination of improved production and organizational processes across the various sectors. It also plays a driving role in local clusters in the sector and cooperates in strengthening the entire Italian forestry and wood system at the European and international level. Only 1 year is a very short time to have some results to transmit to you. And we hope we have in the future.
Thank you very much. So a lot of very interesting elements, and I'm wondering if this is specific to Italy. So what you described are very small forest owners and the lack of management over the last years that you are trying to change with this creation of this new organization. So I'm wondering, maybe we can start with Portugal. So Mario, is the situation similar or different in Portugal?
Well, in a lot of aspects, similar. I will bridge some characteristics of Portugal with some of the ones pointed out regarding Italy. Portugal is a Mediterranean country, but also influenced by an Atlantic coast, so also by an Atlantic climate. That brings a lot of moisture, and so the vegetation grows very fast during some months. And then when we get the Mediterranean a typical climate. It will be very dry, all that vegetation that grew during the Atlantic influence, let's call it like that. We have 3 million hectares forest, 3 million hectares shrubs, 3 million hectares agriculture, roughly, and 1 million hectares artificialized surfaces. Like Italy, we have a big percentage of the forest and the rural areas that are private. In our case, it's even higher. We have 97% of the territory that is private. So the public policies have to take that into consideration, of course, and it's one of the biggest challenges we face. We also have, and we, like Italy and other countries, we face rural abandonment. So a lot of areas are left to the forest and the shrubs to grow wildly. And the economy in these places is also very incipient, if any. So there are no economic incentives to manage the forest properly. That is, in our view, the key driver to change how the forest is managed and taken care of. We also have a problem because the forest and and the shrubs grew with abandonment, a large interface with houses and infrastructures, and in some cases even an intermix with spread houses along the forest and the shrub. In some cases, we are also even worsening the risk by building houses in these areas, but mainly this intermix was created by the abandonment and the forest growing into these areas. I believe that in our American colleague in California, namely, we'll face like the opposite phenomenon. This is a lot of people wanting to build houses in the middle of the forest. We also have we have a central government, and I think this is a big difference with Italy. We have a central government, and then we have municipalities. These are the main entities that are elected, of course, the Republic President. And we have 278 municipalities with a lot of power to decide over the territory, namely forest and rural areas. And in between, there are no elected entities. We have some platforms at the regional and sub-regional level, but they are not elected, so the power is not the same. And that's why, because all of these characteristics, that we faced in 2017 a major catastrophe with more than 500 million hectares burned and 120 people that died. And that's where our agency, in this context, that our agency was created. And as the name indicates, integrated rural fire management. What we meant in our purpose is, in the first place, to integrate what is the prevention and the suppression, to integrate the civil protection sector and the forest sector, because this is both a problem from the civil protection domain and also the forest, and even economy and justice. Well, there are a lot of sectors that are called to the problem, and our agency tries to bring them all together. And that's the plan that we designed aimed to address and to bring all these agencies and governmental sectors on board. We also help the government to design public policies. And that's in Portugal, in 2017, we were investing or spending in the forest, or in the wildfires, better saying, around 120 million euros, 80% for suppression and 20% for prevention. So the response was the key driver. Last year, we spent in wildfires 630 million euros, so 4 times higher. With roughly 55% for prevention and 45% for suppression. So we inverted, and we were able to invert the financing model and the priorities that the government was choosing. Of course, that in face of some tragedies, the immediate answer is, of course, to buy more airplanes, more firefighters, and so on. Knowing that this won't help to solve the problem, it mitigates somehow, but we have urgency in addressing the root causes and not with more means. And I think this is a challenge also for Europe when discussing these issues. And then I think, because of everything that I said, that mainly we have to move, and well, picking up the late summer that has not yet ended, and we are not very optimistic about the end of summer, so we expect September also very hard. But we had this last summer around, well, that's true, more than 30 days in a row, very dry. So all the conditions to have severe wildfires, but also a very long period of time, which causes a lot of stress in the teams. But we also had, that was also highlighted some organizational problems. The relationship between civil protection, the firefighters, the forest teams. So these organizational issues, these management issues, we believe that have to be addressed through a governance, a more appropriate governance model. So I think this is about who owns the risk, how this risk is transferred to municipalities, to private owners, and even for insurances. Because nowadays the damages, and when they are severe, are mainly owned by the central state that pays off the damages and the building of the houses that were damaged. The majority of times, I would say 99% of the times, they are built exactly in the same place, so not with risk reduction measures in mind. So I believe, and this is also a project that we are developing under the umbrella of PIISA, that the insurances can play a big role here by promoting best practices also on private owners, even because we have a large intermix and interface area. So building codes, protection, fuel breaks, etc., are measures that could have an impact on the premium that are paid in insurances. I think that we also should think about how the central state could negotiate catastrophe insurances. I think that because in rural areas the villages are poor, a lot of them, the majority of them, we should think about other models like pool insurances for different risks for a group of people, and of course parametric insurances. So I think the insurance sector could play a good role here for a better public policy design. And well, that's what I would like to share with you. I hope I've contributed to the discussion.
Yes, you have. Thank you so much, Mario. And maybe we can remain a little bit with the risk, the catastrophic risks that you mentioned, which is wildfire that produced so many damages in Portugal, and here how it's managed in France. So turning now to Sylvestre. Can you share with us what is your experience regarding fire management for the forest sector in France?
Yeah. So thank you to organize this meeting first, because it's very important. We are the three main insurance company interested in forest together today. So it is successful just to have this kind of meeting. I think to explain you the model in France, we are a lucky country. We have 15 million hectares, 3 million forest owners, a mixed forest between state forest and public forest and private forest. Different size of forests, wonderful biodiversity, 36 species and more in the mixed forest, and capacity to produce many species. But we have a climate change. We have fire in forest, and we discover since the year after 1976 the high level of fires. And the year 2022 was for France a new game. We had to consider again the risk of fire in forest, and you see in southwest of France and Bordeaux and the place around Bordeaux, all the disease could be a wonderful high level of fire in forest. And it has been a shock for all the forest policy, forest team. It means management, for all teams of forest management for the state. And because of this big fire, we have a reaction from the state to organize. Our model is a state model with a region model in France, organized through the law and through the organization, state organization. And we decide to a new strategy presented last year for the to organize forest protection. It means investment, it means development on the ground in each department, new plan, strategic plan to understand what are the risk department with higher risk, how to organize it. And it has been developed since this new strategy. We have a new law to organize all the risk, because you know very well in Portugal the risk is not just for forest, is for human too. You had an incredible risk of human disease in Portugal, and for France it was less, and we are lucky, but the risk is there, and we have seen this summer again the risk for houses who are in forest today. So we have to also OLD, we call it. It is a way to clean around the houses in the main department who are on risk, the security around the houses to protect people. So the policy of against fire in forest is now on the way. We need more investment, sure. And we need to work, and we work now in a team which is quite high. It means insurance company have to be with us. We need help. We need sample. We need to prevent. We need to organize the model. We need carbon policy is with us. It means that when we have a fire disease, we have capacity to clean forest thanks to the model of carbon, to clean the forest and to reforest. We need all the tree nurseries to help, because if you have no plant to plant again, we have capacity to do it. We have tests on the main fires since storms. We know, and we have capacity. If the French foresters have capacity to plant again and to restore forests. But we need to keep the level. I have been, when I was president of the French Committee for Strategic Forest in France, we have a capacity to measure the demand, and the demand is around 2 million hectares. We will be in risk, and in the next 10 years, and in the 2 million hectares in risk in France because of climate change, we have around 10% we consider just for fires. So it means that the strategic we can work about and speak with specialized in insurance, but this is a game we imagine to have around 200,000 hectares destroyed on forest in the next 10 years. So we have to prepare it. We have to work with firemen. We have to work with all the regulation in the town and in the state. So it's a real new model to include in all the forest management. Until this real level of 2020, we consider that the fire was a risk for south or southwest in France. And now we have to consider it. We manage around 250,000 hectares in France, for example. And we had, during this year, fires in every region in France. And when I say every region, it means that we had fires in Brittany, we had fires in center of France, we had fires in the Alps. We were everywhere against the fire. So I cannot, now when I am in front of a forest owner, it can be an industrial company, it can be a fund, it can be a family office, it can be a farmer. I have to tell him the risk of fire is in the forest, everywhere. So we have to be, if we are professional, we have to consider it. So we need to work on it, and we need to prepare it, and we need to manage our team, to manage the forest, to be able to accept this risk. So it means that we have to equip the forest, to include all the facts to prepare the forest for the fire. It means a management plan. We have a tool in France, incredible tool. We call it Plan de Gestion, management plan for the next 10 or 15 or 20 years. And we have to include now all the aspects of the management of the fire, to consider it and to prevent the risk of fire. We work on mixed forests too, to imagine the model, not to have just, you know, the risk is much more higher on the conifers, for example, but not just conifers. We were at lunch speaking about now the fire is on other species now in agriculture too. So the fire can cross not just forests, but all the places. So we have to consider that the high level of fires now we have in front of us with the climate change is able to go everywhere. So this is a new game. And we are not afraid because we have capacities to react. We have new tools. We are in a consortium, as you said, we are in a consortium in Europe, IT Forest with 14 countries, and we test all the tools, European tools, to help the prevention, to help the capacity to manage the fire or to manage the prevention of fire, and it is very interesting to cross with other experience. We have team from Portugal, from Spain, from Finland who are following the game with us, and we have now to cross the tools. We have now to cross the experience and to see how to be stronger and much more professional, because the risk is every day. So I am not an optimistic guy. I have now around 30 years experience in forests, and I am from a French forest family. The company is 120 years old, so we know very well the game in forest, and we have seen many storms, many risks. So we know how to restore forest. We have tested it, and our teams and our partners in forest follow. But we have to be very carefully, because it was a game that we didn't know with the size. We now discover that the States practice every day. We have a partner company in the States. They play with the fire. Sorry to say play, but they have to play with the fire. They fight against fire with the fire too, because they provoke fire in forest just to control it in the management. So we don't imagine this kind of game, and this kind of tool or this kind of solution, but we have to consider it if we want to be able to follow the management of forest.
Thank you, Sylvester. So you created the transition with Dave. But just before, we heard very many interesting points, and how areas that was not exposed before are now exposed to fire or to wind in Italy, as Alessandra was reminding us. And that solutions are being created. So we are still, a lot of the different entities that you name are still learning how to build stronger management plan, learning how to work together, learning from each other's. And one of the solutions, or one of the risk transfer solution, is insurance. So that was mentioned by Mario, but we are very lucky to have Dave that can also explain what was done in California. And we already use this example with PIISA as an inspiration. So we just wanted to highlight also the work that has been done in California. And Dave, please, happy to hear the story of the project you have implemented.
Thank you. Hopefully you can still hear me.
We can.
Terrific. So thank you very much for inviting me to participate, and it's a real privilege to join the other panelists and everyone in the room to talk about this important subject. In the United States, there is a growing consensus, science and empirical work to support more investments in adaptation, resilience, and mitigation associated with wildfire. And the way we think of this is at three levels: adaptation and resilience at the property level. And in the United States, there's a growing body of empirical work and science around hardening one's home against wildfire, as well as creating defensible space around the home to reduce the risk of wildfire burning the home. Then there's also community level adaptation and resilience, and landscape scale adaptation and resilience. And I'm going to focus on the third of those, which is a nature-based approach to managing forests in the United States to mimic the way that nature used to manage our forests before we had a policy of over 100 years of fire suppression. So in the Western United States, fire was a routine part of the ecology. Fires would be ignited, typically by lightning. They would burn through. our forests in the western United States, including California, were characterized by a lot less fuel, more open space. Then, since Western settlement and genocide against Native American peoples who used to engage in cultural burning, our forests have become choked with fuel because fire has not been allowed to perform the function that nature allowed it to perform historically. And so our western forests are characterized by a lot of underbrush, smaller trees, and a high volume of fuel. Couple that with drier conditions and temperature rise due to climate change, and these are essentially tinderboxes, as we've seen over the last decade, just waiting for ignition to ignite a mega fire. So there's been a lot of empirical work and science done to look at how we can replicate the way that nature once managed our forests. And in the western forests of the United States, this involves thinning the forest, not clear cutting, and also reintroducing fire in a controlled or prescribed way to the forest to burn out the lower level vegetation and the smaller trees. The problem has been, despite the state of California, for example, appropriating $4 billion over the last couple of years to do this work, the United States government appropriating $5 billion in federal legislation to be spent across federal lands for this sort of management of federal lands. So far, the insurance companies that write home and small business property insurance in the United States have not taken this into the models they use to price and to underwrite insurance. So even though in California, local governments, the state government, the federal government, private homeowners associations are all spending money managing the forest, they're still not getting their insurance renewed and they're not seeing any benefit in price. So that was the issue that the partnership that I led between the Nature Conservancy, Willis Towers Watson, a global risk advisory firm, and my center at UC Berkeley sought to try to address. So the first step was in 2021, working with Willis Towers Watson and using the computer models that insurers use in the United States for pricing and underwriting insurance, we demonstrated that those models technically are able to take into account the risk reduction benefit of landscape scale forest management using prescribed fire and thinning. And in fact, when those models are adjusted to account for that risk reduction, it reduces average annual insured losses by between 20 to 40% for properties in areas proximate to where the forest management is occurring. So that was a big outcome. That result was replicated by Moody's RMS, which is the big insurance industry catastrophe modeler here in the United States and globally. And so we knew we really had something. The next step was to try to design, price, and structure an insurance policy that would actually explicitly take into account forest management. And we succeeded with that as well. We placed the first wildfire resilience insurance policy. It's written for a 6,500 home community in the middle of the forest in Northern California, in a geography where other private insurers are not renewing home insurance, not writing new home insurance. We persuaded an insurer, Liberty, to write insurance for this community because there's active forest management occurring using prescribed fire and thinning, both within the community, but also in the adjacent national forest. And the municipality also has undertaken a program of managing the forest by reducing fuel. So I think there's some information in the chat to link to more detail about this. It's a parametric insurance product. It pays out based on acres burned. This particular community has 7,500 forested acres. 1,300 of them were insured using this insurance policy. The policy pays out more based on severity of fire, less based on low severity fire, because low severity fire actually is good fire, the kind of fire we want where it stays on the ground. And so the policy pays out a lower amount, but the total coverage is $2.5 million. And the big win was we convinced the insurance company to write the insurance because there was forest management. They wouldn't have done it otherwise, but for good measure, we also received a 39% reduction in the premium because of the forest management and an 84% reduction in the deductible. So further evidence that insurers can take into account landscape scale forest management in their underwriting and pricing of insurance. So where we hope next to go is to persuade other insurers to take this up more routinely in their writing of home and small business property insurance, as well as commercial property insurance in areas for homes and businesses that are proximate to locations where this work is occurring. It also has the benefit of creating a virtuous cycle. We want to encourage the public to invest more privately and through local government, state, and federal taxes in forest management. But the appetite for doing that is going to be diminished if they don't see any benefit in terms of insurance availability and pricing. So by virtue of placing a product like this and scaling and placing more products like this, it should build more public support for the very kinds of public and private investments we need to do more of in the Western United States and throughout the Western United States, which is more investment in prevention through active forest management. So I think I'll stop there. One other point I would like to make is that while I continue to work on, and many of us are working on trying to get insurers to take this up voluntarily in the United States, at least one state in the United States has decided that they've waited long enough, and they just passed a state law requiring the models used by insurers in that state to take into account property, community, and landscape scale mitigation, including nature-based forest management of the type that I've been talking about. That's the state of Colorado. And in the United States, we regulate insurance at the state level. So states have the power to require this, and Colorado is the first state to do this. So there are two potential paths here. One is voluntary take-up, which I think would be preferable. But if that does not occur, then states can pass laws requiring in the United States that insurers take this into account in their modeling for pricing, but more importantly for underwriting, for the decision whether to write and renew insurance. We're at a moment in the United States of insurance crisis where getting a better price is nice, but if they don't write you the insurance, the price discount is meaningless. And we're at a place now where increasingly insurance is not being written. So getting insurers to take this into account in the decisions they make to write and renew insurance is critically important as we're investing billions of dollars, and we need to invest more billions of dollars in this sort of forest adaptation and resilience work. So I'll stop there and thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dave, for sharing all those insights with us. I think Mario actually wanted to react. So Mario, please.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you for your intervention, Dave. I have just two questions. One is these insurances that you are talking about, taking into account the forest management, is done directly to the private owners or at any public agency or at state level? Are any different models or are just directly to the private owners? And the second question is, how is California, in this case, dealing with also some abandonment of the insurance sector in face of big catastrophes?
So on the first question, the objective is to get private insurers as well as state-created insurers of last resort, which are entities that provide insurance for homeowners and business owners that can't get private insurers because the private insurers have decided it's too risky to write insurer. The goal is to get both entities to take into account, both categories of insurers to take into account the risk reduction benefits of landscape scale, nature-based forest management. And insurers can and should do that in their traditional insurance products, as well as in innovative products like parametric insurance. So that's the path that we're on, is to try to take this initial placement and proof of concept and see if we can get insurers to take it up on a routine basis in their writing of private insurance, but also get what are called insurers of last resort in states to take this into account as well. We don't have a national insurance scheme, and so that's not really a target for this particular approach. Then what is California doing? Well, we can have a longer conversation about that, but the main driver of this phenomenon in the United States is global temperature rises, creating drier conditions, and then creating circumstances where, because our forests are loaded with fuel, we have these mega fires. So one thing we need to do is transition faster to net zero emissions across our economy. Right now, we're at a moment where our federal government has decided to disagree with that, but thankfully states like California are continuing to move ahead. From an insurance regulatory standpoint, the solutions have included modifying the rate rules to allow insurers to get more rate faster by allowing them to use probabilistic catastrophe models in rating. I and the Nature Conservancy were successful in convincing the insurance regulator in California to require that those models take into account landscape scale forest management in the pricing. So that's one solution set. Another, as I've said, is more state, local, and federal investment in adaptation and resilience in the forest. Another is encouraging homeowners, or in some cases requiring homeowners, to harden their properties and also create defensible space around their properties. And another is communities engaging in expenditures on community level fuel reduction. We also have a big problem with zoning, which Mario alluded to. In California, we have about 11 million homes total. About 3 million are in or adjacent to forest lands, and we continue to approve new development in forest areas. That's a huge problem that needs to change. There seems to be no political appetite to change that, however.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. And I think it's quite remarkable, the sentence that you just said, that TNC convinced the insurance regulator that they could trust the models and allow the insurance. And it brings me a question on the availability of data. So for this specific example, I think what we have learned is that you didn't need any specific data because you had this past study, you had the models, and you could convince the local insurance company to go for it. But it might be tricky to replicate this and convince others without sufficient data. And I think we have a question on the chat, which is very similar. So I'm just going to read the question out loud. The question is about how we can quantify risk reduction. So it's similar in the sense that we need the data to prove that it works, and we need the data to build new models. So I think it's interesting to go back to Italy. And Alessandra, I know that your entity is also working on building forest databases that might be useful in the future to work on such innovative models. So maybe you can say a word about it.
Yeah, thank you. We have a lack of available data, strong data, because the Italian Central Institute of Statistics suspended forest surveys in 2016. Each region we had the competence in forest management and forestal data, collected different kind of data. So we can have a show of the entire Italy. National forest inventories were conducted approximately every 10 years. Thanks to the new Natural Forestry Law of 2018 and the National Forest Strategy 2022, funds were allocated that allowed towards the end of 2023 the publication of new statistical data on the website of the Ministry of Agriculture. The National Forestry Map is also finally available on the same site. These free data and cartographic informations help us to follow the path outlined in the forest strategy. Synthetically, no to the abandonment of forest lands, yes to owner responsibility, yes to forestry associations, yes to mixed public-private activities, and yes to forestry business networks. One of the solution for the prevention of fires is to have together forest planning and management of fires. All Italy is subjected to forest fire risks. The northern part, Alps, in the winter or early May, maybe months of January, February, March, and April, and the southern part in the summer in Liguria, the region on the Tyrrhenian Sea, all time. Is just for fire. And so we have to have both together, management of fires and forest planning. This is a solution we have, and we try to explain.
Can you just, going back to the question of data management, can you just explain what type of data is currently being gathered in Italy? Is it about forest characteristics? Is it about climate events?
The statistics of fire events are collected by Vigili del Fuoco. I don't know what the translation. Forest fires.
Firefighters.
Forest fighters. The data about the extension of forests, what kind of forests, what species are in, what kind of clear cutting if we have done, what kind of management, how forests are growing, how forests are dying, some data about the other characteristic of the forests and the property, if we have the data, are collected by the Ministry of Agriculture.
Okay. And turning now to you, Sylvestre, over your experience, how do you use forest data to improve management practices?
Yes, every day. And we develop tools every day to go on faster. And when we speak from data, we speak from management plan. We had a management plan we have to build. This is a law for the next 10 or 15 or 20 years in France. When you have more than, you have 20 hectares and more, you have to develop this plan and to make and to have an accreditation from the administration. And we need to develop this kind of tool with the capacity to improve the data and to make it and to follow the evolution of the data. If you have disease in a forest, the risk of fire is higher. For example, if you have dry wood in the forest, the risk is higher. So you have to react. You have to change your plan or to cut the trees if you can do it. So the idea is to follow and to be much more successful in the capacity to follow the data and to be reactive on the data you have in the forest. We develop, Eric with me today, develop with his team forest data for all the forests we have under management, and just this kind of tool, and we work with a LiDAR system too, give us the opportunity now to be much more able to securize the asset we have under the management. Thanks to the data, we can give us opportunity to be on the way to follow it much more easier.
And if I can complement also with an experience that we are having with a SWIFTT project. So one of the risks that are being addressed is bark beetle, and the data issue has been really, the data has been an issue really, because we need to train the models. We need to calibrate it with local data. And sometimes even if with the best science team that we have, if we do not have the local data to calibrate the models, and we can't use it. So.
And as you speak from data, I would just like to speak from a model we developed with AXA Forest. So with Christophe Lebrun is with us today, and we developed the idea to follow after bark beetle on a big place in France. We develop a test, because when we have an impact after bark beetle or fire, you have to follow not just the technical issues, but you have to follow all the data around the place. It means social data. You mean to include the environmental data too, and to see how to manage it for the next years and the next model. And we develop a tool with the management team too, with following the forest, CDC, Société Forestière from CDC, which is a company who work with data with AXA too. And it is very interesting to follow this kind kind of model through the data we test for the next 20 years to see how after the bark beetle, how is reacting the forest, the new model, the new forest management, the new model of planting, the new model of data to follow biodiversity, to follow carbon, to follow natural capital. So we try to put on the game all the possibilities to be able to say, are we on the way, are we not on the way because of climate or because of a disease?
And you mentioned the word biodiversity. I've seen in the chat that we had a question from, we have a big comment in the chat, so we will read that after, but we had a question regarding how can we combine biodiversity preservation with forest management practices such as prescribed fire. So maybe we can just enlarge a bit this question and ask you, and also Mario, I think it's interesting to understand what Ajif is thinking about biodiversity. Is it considered in the deployment of the new forest management plan, or not yet in Portugal? So
yes,
the idea to preserve and monitor biodiversity.
Yes, and but there is also this conflict, and we already talked about prescribed burning, and there is this wrong idea that prescribed burning affects biodiversity, and it's demonstrated that it's not true. So we still are in this process of bringing the NGOs and other sectors that are concerned about biodiversity to accept not only the prescribed burning but also the fire management when it happens, to let some areas burn because that's not a severe wildfire, and that's given the urgency that we have to manage the vegetation. Without fire in the landscape, we won't be able to manage all the vegetation that we have to manage. I think that grazing is also a very important place and should play an important role in the higher investment in the forest management. The public European funds for agriculture don't take that into consideration. So we have a lot of limitations to bring money into grazing in forest areas, and that should be a priority. And I also am concerned about the European policies about biodiversity and reforestation that a lot of times don't take into account the wildfire risk that are in place. So we have plans to plant millions and millions of trees, but along with that, there is not a consistent policy to address wildfire along with that. So if nothing is done, all those trees will burn eventually. So I believe that, and of course I completely agree with the prevention and the forest management and all the incentives that we have to put in place to have a better managed forest. But in Portugal, and I believe in other countries, we don't have time to wait for all this to happen. So we also, along this, have to have a short-term strategy that requires to have the communities prepared to face wildfire, because it will happen. We have to have good communication systems with the community, early warning systems, and we have to have all these incentives that insurers can bring to have that properly done. We had in Portugal around 20,000 ignitions per year, and sometimes in summer 600 wildfires in one day. So there was a big strategy to reduce the number of ignitions, and now we have around 6,000 per year and 200 maximum a day. So it's of course great, but it's a big reduction, and that's I think that's very important to stress this. All these prevention measures that we are talking about will take a long time to produce effects, and we have meanwhile to be prepared to mitigate the risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mario, for sharing those actions. So it's already 4:30. I feel that we could continue the discussion, but unfortunately we have to move on to the next session. But before that, we can take a couple of minutes for questions in the room. If you have a question from one of the panelists, please feel free to ask. If not, I've seen that the questions on the chat have been answered already. Yes, I think so. So talking about collaboration, I think we've heard that in a lot of the use cases that were described, often it's both a combination of public action, forest management practices, whether it's private or public, and also in some cases the involvement of households, so people and that live there nearby the forest. One of the vehicles for to create these collaborations are the EU projects. So now, if we can project the slides with the second session, so I will just quickly walk you through the 5 different EU projects that we have gathered today. So we have 2 sessions of 30 minutes. First session, you could choose between 3 projects. Second session, other 3 projects. The 5 of them are focusing on forest. Yes, thank you. For people online, just after this presentation, you will have the option to go to breakout rooms and choose the rooms that interest you. So about the 5 different projects. So in the first 30 minutes, you will have the choice between SWIFTT, satellites for wilderness inspection and forest threat tracking, a project which is building a monitoring platform regarding wind throw damages, wildfire risk, and bag beetle detection. In room 2, you will have the option to hear about Arcadia, which is transformative climate resilience by nature-based solution in continental region. So this project is really focusing on central countries in Europe. So you have, let me check at my notes. Italy, of course, is part of Arcadia project, but also insight from Slovenia, Croatia, Romania, Bulgaria, and Austria. It's very interesting. In room number 3, we'll have a presentation from PIISA project, so piloting innovative insurance solutions for adaptation. Among PIISA, you have many different pilots. One of them is focusing on forestry in Portugal. In the second half, you will have the option to choose between DesireMed, which is focusing on implementation of nature-based solution in the Mediterranean region, and Precision Solutions for climate resilience. And I think Presilience is more focusing on Northern European countries, so boreal countries, including Finland, Denmark, Estonia, Norway, and Sweden.